how can a program teach you not to rely on your thinking?
They're
Not to
literally
rely.
teaching self-abandonment through death
Yeah.
threats. Because AA has been branded as the way, and
Yep.
AA's methodology branded as the way, that we don't know that we can get non-harmful recovery.
That's a crime. That's just criminal. It's criminal that we don't know that there's other ways.
I was there a little more than a decade, and you were there a little more than 3 decades. Hello, and welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. My name is Kirsten, and I'm super excited you're here today for another great episode. We have Carrie back on the podcast today. What's up, Carrie?
Oh,
We're going to be deconstructing the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous today. This is really an invitation to critical thinking and to self-trust. We're going to be giving our perspectives on this, and it's an invitation for it to hopefully awaken something in you. If there are things that I miss or we miss, please leave it in the comments. Let this be a conversation starter. I don't know best. You might. Let's just learn and liberate ourselves together. That's the invitation, is to play, have fun, and get free.
yay. Well,
All
I'm
right,
really
cool.
glad to be back.
Yeah. There's been such great feedback from your episode. So many people related, especially the people who maybe had been in longer or had
Mhm.
worked with a lot of sponsees. So I really feel grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. It was very healing for me as well. I mean, I think that anybody that watched the podcast could tell that I was just getting some stuff off my chest that had been sitting there for a while. And since then, I've had a little more time to like calm down, Carrie. This doesn't have to be so intense, but it is intense. Deconstructing from AA ideology is such a process, and it's been a big process for me. I was just saying before you hit record that sometimes I still feel like I'm being a traitor to AA because I lived it for so long and I was such a fan and a big part of it. But my path actually is that I first got clean and sober in 1989, and I continued to go to meetings and be a part of Alcoholics Anonymous until the fall of 2021 when I left AA for good. And during that 32 years, I had a lot of different experiences in Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't always what you would call a big book thumper. In the first 10 years of my sobriety, probably, I was in what I referred to in my other podcast as soft AA. But soft AA didn't mean that I didn't have to do some work. I was still held accountable to the group. I still talked about what I was doing and what I wanted to do, and I got feedback about what I should do, what I shouldn't do. I was just starting to date in sobriety, and the people in my AA group at the time said, "Have your own car, buy your own drinks." They set me up for success in dating and being sober. So I got a lot of help from the men and women in AA that first 10 years without really diving into the dogma of AA. I mean, sure, they said keep coming back. Sure, they said to stay sober, you need to go to AA. I mean, I heard all the sayings, and there was always a big book. Sometimes we read from it in these meetings. There were the 12 steps and the 12 traditions hanging on the wall in my regular meeting place because I bought them from central office and put them up there, thinking that maybe we needed to have that in our view. And I would sit in the meeting and I would look at the steps and think, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. I mean, not formally, but in my head or in my life. Yeah, I could say that. I'm starting to do those things, but it wasn't hardcore. And one of my good friends, who actually was my sponsor at the end, and was just a wonderful woman who never asked me to do anything other than just to show up and be happy and truly cared about me. She reminded me about a sponsor that I had that I didn't talk about. And this sponsor was truly the woman that got me into the big buck. And I think I just suppressed it because it was so painful. Her sponsorship was so abusive. And
Mm.
in fact, my sponsor said, the last sponsor I had, who's still my friend, said, I don't know how you stayed with her as long as you did, but I was really desperate at the time. And she started to come to the GLBTQ meetings that I was going to. She didn't identify as gay. Some people had a problem with that. I wasn't sure why, because I thought that, didn't matter where if you were gay or straight. This is a meeting, an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And She had a Southern accent, and she was very well dressed, and she was very well read, and that attracted me to her. And when she talked about AA, she seemed to talk about a solution in Alcoholics Anonymous. And she seemed to have gotten her solution all from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was just struggling enough that I thought, I'm going to ask her to be my sponsor. And that started this whole process of, well, at one point, she had all the people that she sponsored paying for her phone bill because she wanted us to be able to get a hold of her. So we needed to pay for her phone bill. Another one of the women that she also sponsored, she helped her with her rent. I mean, everybody helped support her in the because that's what she said we needed to do if she was going to be our sponsor. And she was actually the one that would never let you get out of an AA commitment. Didn't matter what was happening. She expected you to show up. And I struggled a lot with that. And she said, Carrie, you got to turn your defiance into reliance on God. You've got to turn your defiance into your reliance on AA and your sponsor. And so she started all that brainwashing. And I would say that what she did was open up the big book for me. I used to say this, and then she walked me in it and opened it up, and then I was living it. She helped me to live
Mm.
AA. She had me do this process of a 4 step that took me so long. Every time I would think I was done, she'd say, no, you got to do more, everything. And I passed that on to the women I sponsored for years. And even other sponsors I had was like, oh my God, that is just not even user friendly. But it was very deep, and it was very detailed, and it was right out of the book, according to this woman with a Southern accent. So anyway, that I wanted to mention that I got into that sponsorship. I did mention her in a way because she was the one, when I told her I wanted to get in a relationship with somebody, she told me that she couldn't sponsor me if I was going to get in a relationship with her because I wouldn't be sober if I was dating her. So she fired me because, oh, what she said specifically was, she said, I am no longer speaking louder than your alcoholism. And so I can't sponsor you, Carrie, because she said, I am no longer speaking louder than your alcoholism. So I had started to question her authority, apparently, and that wasn't okay. And then, and she just said it was because I'm an alcoholic and I wasn't listening. I was in self will, and she couldn't sponsor me. That kind of happened a couple times in my sobriety journey. So I got in the habit of taking all the women that I sponsor through the big book word for word from the very beginning page all the way through the first 164 pages. When we would get to the 4 step, that's when they would do their 4 step and not a minute sooner. And then when they were done with that, then we could move on and read the book and do the rest of the steps. That's a lot.
Wow. It's really reminding me of there's this one Christian deconstructor on YouTube that I follow, and he used to be a preacher for 30 years or something. And some of his first videos of coming out about that he no longer is religious, he's an atheist. And he said, I was a cult leader. And he talks about how he started his own branch. It started at his house and then it moved on, but that he was a cult leader. And it's occurred to me just yesterday that some of these sponsors are cult leaders. Literally, their herd of sponsees are cults. And so when you're saying this, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
y'all are paying her bill, and if you don't do
Mm-hmm.
exactly what she says, you're out. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just, this is a new awakening for me that some of the actual sponsors, thinking of them in terms of they're proper cult leaders. If you're giving the ideology to somebody, you're controlling them. You're giving them this powerlessness and all of this stuff. Some of it's subjective, but she sounds like a cult leader.
Totally. Totally.
My
And
way
I
or
think
or
that
you're out.
my way or you're out. Totally. And also we had this feeling that we were a special group, that we were like chosen, and that we could stay in that group as long as we continued to do what she said. And if we stopped doing it, we were out. And it was really damaging. It damaged my self esteem, my self trust. And when I left, it was like, oh, what am I going to do now? Because when she fired me, then that's actually, because I'm going back to revisit the way things happen, that's actually when I asked this other woman to sponsor me, who I also knew was going to be hardcore, but turned out to be less hardcore than the first sponsor that I had that was hardcore. So anyway, it was still hard, but it wasn't as bad. I think that's why I put up with the second sponsor so long, was because we didn't have to pay her phone bill and we didn't have to, do everything that she said in real time. That's how the sponsor was. And she hurt a lot of people here. And then she went back to wherever she came from. So she doesn't live here anymore, but I know she's still around
Yeah.
harming other people.
I was given similar instructions as far as with the book. I never paid for anything for my sponsor. I probably bought her a coffee here or there, and she probably did for me too. It was more like a friendship in that manner. But
Mhm.
I was told that I needed to, from the very beginning, I was told I need to read the book. And I'll just share, like, the very first time I was introduced to the book is the night that I got out of rehab. I went to my first AA meeting, and then somebody was like, I'm your temporary sponsor. Here's your book. I circled all the meetings you need to go that I love. Like, they took the meeting list and they all circled their favorite meetings and gave it to me. Said that I'd have 5 circles on the women's meeting. I knew that all 5 of them were going to be there. They're like, this is
Mhm.
where we're going to be. Here's our number. They like very hardcore recruitment stuff. And then one of the ladies there, she shared a cab home with me that night because she lived by me, and she didn't take my money when I got dropped off first because I was the first, right, and she didn't take my money, and I was like, oh, that was really weird. Like, she paid for the cab. That's because it made me like trust her almost, and that now I know
Mhm.
is part of the love bombing process and part of the recruitment process. It could have been just the kindness of this individual, but to not have a newcomer pay for the first cab ride home, that's kind of part of the culture too, right? And so
Yes.
then she texted me and was like, meet me tomorrow at the meeting. So she's still trying to hook me into the meeting. And I
Mhm.
get it. I hook people in too. So this is not blaming her. But so then I go back to meet her at the meeting the next day. And then she's like, let's do the meeting and we'll get a coffee after. And I was super excited to have a coffee with her after the meeting. Because look, I got out of rehab on a Thursday. I met her Thursday night. Now this is Friday. So I have
Mhm.
a plan the day after rehab with my first sober friend. And she was very, very controlling. It helped in the beginning and then it was really not okay. But
Mhm.
so after the meeting, we go to the cafe across the street, which now I later learned was like an AA cafe kind of way where AA floods the whole cafe after the meetings, because it was a clubhouse, right? And so we're in there and we order our coffees and we sit down and she gets the big book, literally this exact book right here, because she's the one who wrote in my book, Stay for the Miracle, October 2009. October 30th, 2009. Literally, that was the day that we went to the cafe. She opened the big book and she started reading it to me. And in my head, I was thinking, this reminds me of when I was a child and I went to my best friend's house and all of a sudden we're sitting around a table eating brownies, reading out of the Jehovah Witness book and stuff. And my mom forbid me from going back to that house and threw away the books that I was given to take home and read by this family. That's really what it reminded me of, was like, this
Mhm.
is when someone's making you read a book you don't want to read. It was like, wait, why do I
Mhm.
need to be into? I'm sure you remember how awkward it is if you started this way. The way that I was started, she started with a preface. And
Mhm.
she just started reading the preface, and then she got into the forward to the first edition. I'm like,
Mhm.
what the fuck is she on about? And meanwhile, in my head, I'm thinking I'm one day out of rehab, coming off of
Mhm.
Klonopin and alcohol, right? So I'm like a hot mess, anxiety, don't know which way is up. I so numbed out emotionally. All I want is a friend, and she's just reading me this gobbledygook, and it sounds like in Peanuts, where they're like wah 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 wah, and I'm like, what the fuck? Forward to the first edition when Bill is a great guy. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And in my head, all I'm thinking is, I want to go get drunk with her. She'd be fun to get drunk with. That's all I'm like, why are we reading this bullshit, this Bill shit? And so that was my introduction to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, aka the Bible of the 12-step cult religion.
Right. I didn't really study this book until I got that woman that was from out of town to be my sponsor, the
Okay.
one that made us pay her bill. She went through it all, and it was like this was a sacred text.
Yeah.
And she had us long, like even the title page of Alcoholics Anonymous, she had me underline how it says the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And she had me underline recovered. This is, she would say that this is a textbook, and it's a textbook that you need to study. It says in the big book that this is our basic text, which means, Carrie, you need to study it
Yeah.
all the
I
time. And
have
every time you have that too. Yep,
AA
got to study
recovery
it.
program is highlighted. She highlight
Yeah.
AA recovery program.
And then she had me write that the title page has such hope. People have solved the drink problem. They have recovered from a mental obsession. That obsession is gone as a result of working the 12 steps. So you just look at that, and that's really right there. That says everything right there on that title page. And then she would go to the next page where it talks about the table of contents. She had us right up to page 23, helps an alcoholic understand why they are powerless after they take the first drink. And so then you go on, and she would look at all the descriptions of all the stories, which have changed from my initial big book, because the stories in the big book changed supposedly to reflect the population of today. And then she would take me to the first preface, and just like your sponsor, read that. And then she would make sure that I understood that all changes made over the years in the big book, which is AA members' fond nickname for this volume, have had the same purpose: to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately, and thereby to reach more alcoholics, which I always thought was kind of interesting, because they won't change the first 164 pages of the big book. And in that first 164 pages, for instance, it has the chapter to the wives, when there are more husbands today in AA because their wives are alcoholics. So why does it still say chapter to the wives, people? Why can't we change that chapter to the partners, or chapter to the spouse of an alcoholic? So really, it doesn't change to reflect the AA membership today. It just changes because they want to change the stories to sell more books. That's what I think. But anyway, then we'd move on to the forward to the first edition, and it says something really important on it. It says that this book is to show other alcoholics precisely, and it's italicized. And I was told by this out of town sponsor that anything that's italicized in the big book means you got to pay attention to that. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. And so this is the truth, the way, and the light right here.
With hindsight, like how I see it now, it's the main purpose of the book is to indoctrinate people so that the program can perpetuate itself
Yes, exactly.
through free labor, thought reform, which is mind control, and so the program could perpetuate itself.
Absolutely. From the very start, what you're told is that we only get to keep what we have by giving it away. It's the same thing when you get religion in church, when you get saved. I had an aunt that got saved, unbeknownst to me, when I was like 12. She asked me if she could take me to lunch, and then she just wanted to try to save me. That's what they're taught to do. That's what you have to do if you're a
Yeah.
Christian in some
Yeah.
religious organizations. You
Yeah.
have to go save people. Well, that's what's happening here. That's what happened to
Yeah.
you when she gave you the book and started reading it to
Uh-huh.
you. We
My
do the
Jehovah
same
Witness
thing.
bestie when I was in grade school, and also the lady in AA the day after I got out of rehab. Yeah, both of them were trying to
Yes,
save me.
they were both trying to save you, and they thought they were doing the right thing, which is what everybody thinks they're doing. It's not that they set out, I don't think anybody ever set out to harm me in Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, there were some people whose probably motives were questionable, but most people were just thinking they were being
Right.
helpful. I did the same thing, Kirsten. I thought
Right.
I was being helpful by passing.
For sure, predators there, which is a separate story than the actual indoctrination. Most people are good intended with the indoctrination, I think, but there's also predators there, which is another story, whether it's the drug dealers or the sexual predators or even in a way, financial predators, paying
Right.
a phone bill. One of my really good friends, his sponsor had him free labor. So he was to go to his house and do like construction work, paint the house, those kinds of things.
Yes.
There's all sorts of trafficking and stuff.
The free labor. I did the same thing. If you got a bunch of sponsees and you got to move, hey, who are you going to call? Call your pigeon sisters. I forgot to even mention that. We were pigeon sisters. And people would say, well, I don't want to be a pigeon sister. That's your sobriety sister in the program. Then I was told by my sponsors that you're a pigeon sister because pigeons carry the message. So that's why we're called pigeons, because they carry the message.
I kind of want to read the forward to the first edition
Okay, let's do that.
because I think there's things here to point out. And really, when it talks about, and my understanding is the big book was written in 1938 and it was published April 10th, 1939. So we're talking like still very early days AA and maybe a year out of the Oxford group. Bill was like a year and a half out of the Oxford group. So when it says, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So right there, I want to stop because that first sentence is a lie. So we're starting off with what has been Bill is notorious for. I'm not sure that there's even many people that would doubt that Bill is a liar, like a fabricator. They probably wouldn't say the word liar, and let me be cautious with that word, but that Bill fabricated stories, that he was embellished things all the time, that he took over exaggerated to make a point. And even we were talking earlier about the writing of the big book. It's a book called The Writing of the Big Book. Let me see if I can pull that up. It's quite a long book. And even in that book, so by William, can you see that? The Writing of the Big Book by William what is it? William Schauberg. I don't think I said his name right. It sounds like that guy is an AA, the author of that book, but he even talks about how Bill is notorious for embellishing things and making them up, and his justification. Now, this is somebody that I would say is a truth teller, but is still indoctrinated into Bill's recovery ideology. So he's pointing out where things were inaccurate in AA history, but he still sees the world through the lens of 12-step recovery methodology, which I think is bullshit, basically. I don't think that it's reality, the fatal progressive disease, all of that. So what he says is that it's okay that Bill embellishes the truth because he's trying to illustrate a point, and the point is important. So if Bill has to fudge around or literally make things up so that he can make a principled point, that it's okay because his points are good. And I'm like, but that's your subjective opinion on what points are good. He's literally making stuff up. So the first line, the way that I found out that was a lie is when in 2018, so this was 2 years before I left AA, I was on a USA road trip, and I stopped in a lot of places. I went on a USA road trip for like 3 months. I used to have like a phobia of freeway driving. This was a big fuck you to my fear, right? It was like, I'm going to just drive solo across the country and meet up with friends, go to national parks, all of that. So I mapped out some AA historical things because I was a true believer, and one of them was Stepping Stones, Bill's house in New York. And on that tour, the tour guide, who was obviously a free laborer. He's unpaid, being exploited through Alcoholics Anonymous to give a tour of Bill's house. Yay! Yeah, let's go see his spook room and his Ouija board center. So while he's walking us around Bill's house, he says there wasn't really 100 people like it says in the book. There was really only 82 because Bill was a salesman. So he exaggerated. And that just always really stuck out weird to me. But I've come to find that in general, Bill rounded up, if you will, with the facts to create an illusion of how what he was saying was valid.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree with that. And even the point where it says 100 men and women, there was one woman. That's all. There was one woman. And really, they didn't even think at that time that women could be real alcoholics or were alcoholic at all. But there was one woman. And it really was started as a boys' club. It wasn't meant to ever include women. They didn't want women. They didn't like women in their meetings. It was distracting to Bill, for one, but also it was just they didn't want women. They didn't think women could be alcoholics at that time. They just thought they were lushes and they didn't want women in their group. They thought it would dilute the message if women. So even just to say, even if the number was 100, there was only one woman. But I believe you when you say there's 82. You can't find that written anywhere because that the truth of a lot of those facts are just history that is hidden or just not reported. No,
Yeah.
it's not recorded or not reported or
Yeah. And so here's a little thing I want to say. This 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, this frames AA as uniquely effective by implying total recovery using anecdotal evidence as absolutist language. Quote, precisely how we have recovered. This creates a false binary that AA works where other options don't. I'm just looking at some notes here.
good.
Okay. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, we hope these pages will. Here's the bullshit part right here. These pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. What the fuck are you on about, bro? What do you mean? Look, we hope that we can manipulate your mind so effing good that you won't even look anywhere else
Right.
for any
Don't
sort
even
of
question
proof.
it. No, don't even question it. It's just true. Just accept
No,
it.
no further. Don't worry
Don't
about
look
it.
behind the curtain kind of thing. There's nothing behind the curtain.
Oh my God. Okay, so I know a little about statistics, right? And so this is what something that I know about statistics is what if you want to understand what a population of any population looks like. Ideally, you take a randomized sample from that population that's of a big enough size that then you can look at that randomized sample. That means it's at random. It's not the
Hmm.
82 people that were in Akron or New York that were your whatever your Oxford group called religion pals. And then when you look at the results from those, you analyze those, the randomized sample to infer to the population. But you can only really infer to the population if it was a randomized sample. Otherwise, it's biased. So
Sure.
your 82 pals in these 5 years are not random. That's not how it works. And how many pals did you have that didn't make it? What percentage of the
Exactly.
population that came through your door are we talking
Right.
about? So, what are you on about? No further validation needed. Okay.
Yeah, it goes on to say, we think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Okay. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. And right there, it's saying that your problem isn't just drinking, it's thinking. And that's where like NA and OA and all those other 12-step programs are just piggybacking off of this because this is the way. And you can adopt it because it's the way. You don't even need any proof, just do it. We have the answer. Bill has the answer, actually, Bill, because he had a white light moment and God told him, or God channeled this message through him. When we all know it was from the Oxford group, he didn't even make it up, he just stole it.
I want to back up just to many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. According to who? What do you mean
Right.
sick? What? No, okay. So when I think of alcoholic, I understand that he's taking a word that maybe was more common in his era than is today, but still, it wasn't a universally accepted term. It is absolutely not now. We have alcohol use disorder, in America at least, which is only based upon your actual pattern of drinking. That
Right.
means that after 12 months, you no longer even have alcohol use disorder because it has to do with your drinking in the past 12 months. So
Right.
everything that we put on top of that in the word alcoholic, alcoholism, to me is all hogwash. It's all adding stuff up. It's like saying, okay, it's beyond your habit of drinking. There's all this other stuff. So now he's assuming that we're sick. And there's this arrogance to it too. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. Bill, you do not comprehend what the you're even talking about. Sick.
Well,
There
the drunks that he's dealing with are low bottom drunks, though. You got to remember that because of AA, that bottom has been lifted, where people like you and I, who didn't end up in jails or institutions, could get sober before our life was ruined. So he was just talking about those guys in the gutter that he was working with. And they probably were very, very sick health wise too, with lots of complications. So I think that he's wrong when he says many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. Anybody at that time that knew anybody that drank and couldn't stop drinking, they were probably really sick,
But
were
sick
really
from
sick
what?
people.
What sick from what? Because I'm having a hard time. I want to understand what you mean by that, because when I think of sick, I think of like the flu, the cold.
Yeah, physically ill. See, what I think they were
Okay.
physically, I think what he's trying to say is that they were mentally ill, but I think they were probably very, very physically ill. As a nurse, I'm going to say they probably had liver damage, heart damage. They were probably physically sick individuals. But I think when you read this, what you hear is he was mentally, or if you go on to read, you're going to hear that he's morally sick and he needs to find God is really his problem.
That's where
But
he's
no,
getting
I
to. He's getting to spiritual malady. He's getting to that we're
yes,
spiritually sick. And I want to say that when it comes to the bar and the low bottom and stuff, I was institutionalized just like Bill. I went to rehab. So I did go to an institution because of my drinking. And
yes,
like Bill did. Bill went 4 times, I believe. It could have been 5. I'm not exactly sure. Like Bill, I couldn't stop drinking either. And I went to a
right.
facility to get help. So I definitely was institutionalized as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and that's a good point. I went to treatment too. I hear what you're saying. I've taken care of men and women who had drank so long that they killed their liver and that they were yellow and bloated and close to death. I mean, that to me is a really sick substance use disorder person who was got cross, who was really ill, physically ill, and obviously
Yeah.
emotionally ill too. But so I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what he's trying to say here, but I agree with you that he's leading us up to saying that we
Yeah.
have a spiritual malady.
These are
He's planting
unverified
a seed.
claims, and he's not a doctor and he's not an addiction expert, but he's acting as one. And
Yes.
there's no science in here. The alcoholic is a very sick person. He's not saying the alcoholic has co-occurring situations.
No.
So when it talks
Mm-mm.
about alcoholism as a disease, the way that I think about it is that's baloney, but alcohol can cause diseases.
Right.
And the
Yes.
diseases it can cause are like cirrhosis and other
Yes.
issues of the body, legitimately by toxins and poisoning the body and
Right.
stuff, right? So alcohol
Yes.
can cause disease, but alcohol is not a disease. But to say the
Yes.
alcoholic is a very sick person, now twice in the same sentence, he's actually making it first person, that you are a sick person instead of you have a
Yes.
sickness, and that you are an alcoholic. And I'm like, bro, I had a drinking problem. I had a problem with
Right.
drinking. Even when I got
Yes.
institutionalized in rehab, I had like all the anxiety disorders. That's why I was on the benzos from my psychiatrist. And I had an alcohol addiction. I was physically dependent and I was abusing alcohol. And I wouldn't even look at myself as sick at that time. I had a serious alcohol problem, is the way that I would look at it. And I had
Right.
problems with dysregulation. And that was the anxiety, the
Yes.
unresolved trauma, and all that. But I'm not going to take on that I'm a sick person because Bill's trying to sell a program. I wasn't
Right.
sick. I've been sick, but, and that's all personal choice, right? So that's why maybe I'm being like how I would even look at it for myself or how I would even describe somebody else. And I think
Right.
that what this is doing is it's setting up society to look at people with a drinking problem as sick people. Because in AA,
Yes.
they say we're not bad getting good, we're sick getting well. And I call
Yes.
bullshit in my own view on that. I wasn't sick. I had an alcohol problem that was very much killing me. But I
Right.
wasn't sick. I was addicted. I was physically and psychologically and emotionally addicted to a liquid.
Right.
A
Get that.
survival level, I kept drinking. It was hooked into my survival level. That's how I look at addiction now. It's in our midbrain. It's a different part of our brain so that my logic isn't overriding it. But I'm not sick.
I
And
like that.
maybe let us know
No,
in the
I think
comments
you're
what you
right.
think.
Yeah.
Because this might look, for whatever you and I think, there's going to be people who think all sorts of different things too, and
Right.
all
Yes.
thoughts matter. Like it's about critically thinking. But I'm kind of like fuck you, Bill, I'm not sick. Like no, you can't, because you're trying to make me believe that I am damaged, I am broken, I am flawed, I am defected, I am diseased, and therefore I need your solution permanently.
Right.
Every day I need
Right.
your reprieve because I'm fundamentally broken. And so for me, I'm like,
Right.
no, Bill, I ain't broken.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And I don't know how many times, maybe every time I went to a meeting, somebody would say that we're bonding here over our brokenness, that we're here because we're broken and we're helping each other get fixed. We're fixing each other. AA fixes broken alcoholics. I like where you're going with that. I hadn't thought about it in that way, that we're not sick, that we have. I know even for myself, a lot of what I was doing was situational. It was untreated trauma. And it was a lot of it was just, I did not know how to regulate my emotions. I didn't learn that as a child, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. And sometimes drinking and using alcohol helped me to not care about it. For one thing, I just didn't care if I
Yeah.
wasn't regulating my emotions. I could do whatever I wanted to do. And I didn't think I was an alcoholic or an addict or anything. I didn't think I was sick until they told me I was in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's where I caught
Sorry.
alcoholism. Yeah. I mean, if you're not an alcoholic when you
This,
get there, you'll be one. They'll make you one.
right. Right, 100%. Recovery culture teaches us to be sick, dependent, and
Yes.
powerless. And yes, that
Powerless.
we're sick. And I'm like, no.
Right.
I've had a sickness before. I've had COVID, I've had a cold, I had pneumonia, I've had all sorts of stuff,
Yes.
right? But no, I am not fundamentally sick at because he's saying
No.
many people do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. You're not
Right.
saying has a sickness, is a
No,
sick
you're just
person. This is
right.
sick. Why
Yeah,
does it
and
have to
that's
be
like
shame?
it's blaming the victim. It's like, I'm not my feelings. I'm not my emotions. I might be, that you got to separate that sickness from the person. You are a
Right.
person who has a drinking problem. You're not sick. I totally get that.
I
I
even
totally,
refuse to fully identify as autistic or ADHD, which a year after leaving AA, I found out I'm autistic or got assessed as autistic, and 4 years later, which was like a year ago, ADHD. But I'm not taking those on as my identity. I will not
no,
identify with dysfunction. It doesn't mean that those aren't true with how I operate. And I'm not making a statement about what anybody else should do, and I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm trying to say that when I found comfort in an identity that was based upon my dysfunction or deficits, I conformed to that ideology for belonging and it limited me and it stunted my growth. So now
absolutely.
I use labels as maps, not cages, and that means that I'm cautious with how I hold things. It doesn't mean that it's
Right.
not doesn't have truth to it, but I will not put a label on me and say I am sick, I am character defected. I
No,
am way more than all of that. I am powerful.
right.
I am like spirit through flesh like we all are. And
Hmm.
whatever I put my mind to is going to start to create some of that in my life.
Right.
Now, I don't
Right.
believe in magical thinking, but I if I keep thinking that I'm sick,
I do believe in self-fulfilled prophecies. I believe if somebody tells you something enough that you're just going to do it. And which is why I think that alcoholics go out and drink when they leave AA. If they do, if people with substance use disorders leave AA and drink, it's because they're like, what the hell? I might as well. I know that's what I'm going to do because that's what they were told. It doesn't have to be that way. Belief is just something we keep telling ourselves. Change what you're telling yourself. And I think that's what happened to me. I didn't leave AA because I was angry at anybody. I didn't leave AA because I was resentful, which might be what people think when they hear what I have to say. I left because I'm like, I'm tired of creating this narrative in my life. I'm tired of saying I'm an alcoholic when I haven't drank anything for years. I'm tired of that. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't even understand how we can sit around and say we're powerless and our life is unmanageable. Today, I was pretty desperate and my life was a little bit mismanaged and I was in a lot of trouble. And I did find in AA a community of people that were willing to listen to me. And that was really important. And just to buy me a cup of coffee and answer the phone and talk to me. All those things are so important to,
mhm,
when we get to, and I know we're not there yet, but when we get to the doctor's opinion, and I used to go through this word by word with the women that I sponsored, it talks about why Alcoholics Anonymous works or why it's popular or why it's widely accepted. It's because families get back together and medical people start spreading the word. And the truth is that I worked in substance abuse and I helped a lot of women in AA. So I know, here's what I think. AA is a big fat babysitter. judges, families, they're all sick of us. They don't want it. They're tired of fucking around with us. And they're like, you're going to go to AA because those guys will help you. And I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't care
Yeah.
what they do with you because I'm tired of you. I'm
Yeah.
exasperated. You burned all your bridges with me. And so you go to AA, and there's some tireless worker bees that are brainwashed to believe they can't stay sober unless they help you. They'll take your calls in the middle of the night, but I won't. They'll come and pick you up, but I'm done picking you up. I can even understand why the courts want AA because they don't know what to do with them either. There is no other program where people for nothing will help you. For nothing. They'll come and get you. I know we've talked about there is a cost. Well, our agency, our critical thinking, our livelihood, our brains, that's all the cost of being in AA. We just swoop you up and we'll take care of you in AA. That's what they did. That's what they did to me. That's what they do. But then, if there could be something like that without the dogma, where people are just willingly going to help you and not tell you what to do, but just be there for you, because that's what helped me the most was that. And there's still people in AA that I love because they just showed up for me when I was having a hard time. And it's not because they told me I was going to die or if I drank, it was just because they cared about me. And nobody ever cared about me as much as the people cared about me in AA, at
Yeah.
that time. So
Yeah.
it's a quandary. It is.
Totally. And that's totally real. And people cared about me and I cared about them. And that is 100% real. And also, here's like the cognitive dissonance, right? That's true. And also, something
Hmm.
opposite of that is true. They didn't actually care about me. They cared about the system because the minute that I disagreed with the system and left, they didn't give a fuck about me. They never really cared about me. They thought they did. What they were actually doing was caring about perpetuating a system, and that they were
Yes,
doing that because they thought they would die if they didn't. And that's the
absolutely.
indoctrination. We think we're
Yes.
showing up for people because we care, but we're doing it because we've been told that we're going to die if we don't. That's the core of it. And the proof of that.
Hmm.
So, yes, it's real that we cared and they cared. Yes, that is real. And
Yes.
also, it's bullshit. It's both are
Right.
true, which they don't make sense, right? Because it's cult stuff we're talking about here, but it's also true that AA doesn't care about us. They care about the program because the minute you step
Hmm.
outside or leave,
Right.
you're shunned and you're off and you're
Yeah.
dangerous and you are a ticking time bomb. So they
Hmm.
care real, and they also only care, it's conditional. It's not actually
Yeah.
love, it's conditional, and it's
Right.
brutal because I really
Brutal.
felt like I cared about people. But I have to
Hmm.
admit that if those people walked out the door, I probably would have done the same shunning to them
Hmm.
that was done to me when I left. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
that they're out.
Totally. 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 And there are people that I think left AA, and I think that they're probably not very healthy because they left AA. That's how I thought. I really thought that only the
Yeah.
losers leave AA. Only the losers. Because if you can't get this, if you can't get sober in this program, you're not going to get sober. If you can't get sober in AA, if you can't do what we do, if you can't make amends and find a higher power and carry this message, if you can't get honest with yourself, you can't get sober. So you could go live your life, but it's not going to be a real life. It's not going to be a good life. And you're probably going to end up back here, and or you're going to die. That's just honestly what I thought.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are
Same.
people out there saying that about me right now, that Carrie's
100%.
always been a little off the rail, and now she's really gone off the rail. She's out there telling people they don't need to go to AA, and that AA is actually harmful. Well, how ungrateful can she be? All those times I took her call and all those times I met with her. And then what about all the women that I helped? They're probably all thinking, I'm sure they're wondering, what are we doing now? If Carrie's saying she doesn't believe this crap anymore, what does that mean for me? And I'm sure that's scary,
And then there's
because
also an
it's
arrogance, I'm sure of it, that is sounds something like, but when she realizes, when she gets drunk and everything goes bad, we'll still accept her back. We'll forgive her. Don't worry. Like, there's a seat here for her. Like, we get it. She thinks she knows better. She's going to be right
right,
sized and humbled by God. And when she comes back,
right.
we're just going to be like, we're
Hmm.
going to love her till she can love
Right,
herself again.
right. Let's just pray for her. We're all praying for Carrie right now. I'm going to read this because it just reflects where we're at right now. I wrote in my journal when I was deep in the AA ideology, there is no freedom in self reliance. It's an illusion. Letting go of my self will was my final conquest in AA. I thought there was freedom and safety in self reliance, but it was an illusion. The true safety is in letting go and trusting that God will change my thinking and my life. I truly believe that. I couldn't believe anything I thought. I couldn't. How can a program teach you not to rely on your thinking?
They're
Not to
literally
rely.
teaching self-abandonment through death
Yeah,
threats.
yeah. Believe
It's
anything you're
horrifying.
thinking.
I'm
It's
still trying to get back all that right now. I'm
I
not
know.
recovered from that self-betrayal indoctrination.
Right. No,
It's
I
insidious. It's
think
cunning, baffling, powerful.
it really is. It really is because yeah, it is because I was told for so long that I can't trust my thinking and that if I'm thinking, then well, I've said this before, that I'm in a dangerous neighborhood or I'm behind enemy lines and my brain wants to kill me and I can't think. I can't think. The whole point is just do it. And that big book says it all through. Just trust us. Just do what we do. Act better than you feel. Just do what we do, even if you don't really want to, because that's the power in the program is doing stuff you don't want to do. When I went to the hardcore group in my home group, I had to wear a dress. And here I'm a lesbian. I don't have no dresses. And I'm a nurse. I wear uniforms. And I had to dress up every week for my home group. And sometimes I would just cry all the way to the meeting because I'm like, I am not comfortable. This is not who I am. I don't like my clothes. I don't fit in. This is not who I want to be. But I'm told that it's not the dress, Carrie, that's going to get you sober. It's your willingness to follow direction that's going to get you sober. Because right now, you are just too self reliant. You just are way in self will, and you just got to surrender that and do what the fuck I tell you to do so you can stay sober and brainwashed, is what I learned.
Meanwhile,
Sober and
drinking has
brainwashed.
nothing to do with what kind of clothes we're wearing. But obedience training does.
Yeah.
This other line here, right below that. So we had many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. And then he goes on, and besides, we are sure that our way of living has advantages for all. We were not all like Bill. I heard, and I don't know what's rumor and what's true because I literally wasn't alive in the 1930s, that Bill was, before 13th stepping was a thing, he was 13th stepping inside the Oxford group. So
Mhm.
somebody like Bill, who is what some people will call megalomaniac, whatever, and that he was a very arrogant man and that he
Mhm.
was more of, if we're going to just be very simplistic and black and white here, predator prey kind of a people, that he was predator people. And a lot of us who go into AA are more prey kind of a people.
Mhm.
I never was out there graping. Can I say graping? People say graping to avoid, like, take the G off. You know what I'm saying? I was
Yeah.
never doing that to other people. That was happening to me. So I don't need
Mhm.
the same kind of program that somebody who is a lot more predatory needs to right
Mhm.
size me, to knock me down, to get me out
Right.
of it. Like, of course I have arrogance. I think we probably all do. But I
Right.
needed to actually learn how to stop betraying myself. I was already
Yes.
betraying myself when I got there. I didn't need to learn how to betray myself even more. Bill needed to
Right.
stop doing what he was doing. But no, when you say our way of life has its advantages for all, no, it disadvantaged me. It literally gave me
Yes.
handicaps. It literally
Yes.
disabled me from my critical thinking, from my self trust. It had me betray myself even more, which I did not need.
Right. Totally. Totally. And yes, I totally agree with that. When I got there, I was told you're powerless, Carrie. And I'm like, you know what? I've always been powerless. And then I was told that you're the problem. I'm like, I don't want to be the problem. And I don't want to be powerless. I don't want to have to come here and hear that I need to do service work. That's all I've fucking done for one thing. I grew up in a family with a handicapped father. So I was hyper vigilant when it came to caretaking. And then I became a nurse. And then I go to AA and I'm told, you have to serve everybody. And I'm like, oh my God, I guess that's all I got to do is just serve the world. That's the answer. Maybe that was the answer for Bill because he was a selfish prick. But I didn't come here being a selfish prick. always helpful
Right.
and kind. Even when I was drinking, I was always taking care of people. I felt like I needed to take care of myself. I never heard that message.
Yes. 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 So, although I think that joining a religious cult could have some benefits for some people, it comes with a lot of disadvantages. And just to say, broad brush, we are sure that our way of living has advantages for all.
Right.
It sounds literally crazy to me.
What I always heard and what I told the women I sponsored, if they would disagree with something in the book because it was outdated or the language was weird, I would just say, that's a language of the time and it still is an important message. Just overlook the things you don't like, just overlook it. Or take what you want, leave the rest, but really take it all. Because you can't really take what you want and leave the rest. You have to take it all if you want to get sober. But yeah, I'd make excuses for the language and I'd make excuses. If somebody was critically thinking and pointed out to me that didn't sound like them, I would say it will. Stick around and it will sound like you. You'll get it. You just got to stay and
Totally.
then you'll
I
get
remember my sponsor once, there was one person who, now that I think of some sponsors as proper, like mini cult leaders, right? There was a mini cult leader who, when I first got there, she was super controlling, very rigid. Her sponsees all had to fall in line, who you date, where you work, like all these kind of decisions. And I was like, that's not going to work for me. And so I told my sponsor I really didn't like her. Like I did an inventory on her on this one really like hyper controlling cult leader sponsor. One time I remember I was like 4 months sober or something, brand new. I was wearing, it was cold. I was wearing like a wool coat over like this really like sexy dress. It was my anniversary with my boyfriend. We've been going out for years. And then after the meeting, everyone could see that I had all this like makeup on, high heels, and this like nice coat over. They're like, "What? Let me see your dress." So I opened it up outside the meeting and showed everybody my dress. And then my friends were like, "Oh my God, you look great. Your boyfriend's gonna love it." What da, da, da. And then the super controlling one was like, wear a condom. People start having abortions when they get sober. No, 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 like all this stuff. And I was like, what are you
oh
talking
my
about?
God.
So I told my sponsor, I was like, what the hell? Like, no matter what she ever says to me, it's always so wrong, so out there, all these assumptions and all these projections. And she even also told me I shouldn't be dating my first year. I'm like, so I'm supposed to break up with my boyfriend that I've had for a long, like, what do you mean? And so I told my sponsor, I did this whole inventory, check, write up the inventory. Why don't you like her? And how are you being selfish, self-centered, afraid, and dishonest with respect to that?
Right.
Like, what's your part? And then my sponsor said to me, she says, you know what? She's probably going to end up being your best friend. That's how a lot of this works. Whatever you bothers
Yes.
you, you're going to fall in love with. She's probably going to end up being your best friend. Okay, no, that didn't happen. This was 2009, so that was like a long time ago. No, she did not become my best friend. She was controlling and abusive and like way over the top for my boundaries. No, this was someone to like walk away from and to like
Right.
protect yourself. Don't talk, don't
Right.
engage with her. Like, and so, yeah, that's what that reminded me of, is my sponsor telling me that how she thought I was going to be in the future was based on the opposite of how I was actually feeling and
Yes.
reporting to her when there was clear
Yes.
boundaries were being violated. Why are you starting
Right.
to talk to me about this whole abortion spiel when I'm going out on my anniversary date with my boyfriend? Who the heck are you? What are you even
Right.
talking about? We're on the side of the road. Like, who are you?
Right.
Nobody
Oh, yeah.
gets to
No.
talk to me like that. What do you mean?
There's so much in AA that's just accepted on that premise. Like, yes, like in our meetings, we were always told the men will look at your ass, the women will save your ass. So there was just always this underlying current of men are probably going to hit on you, especially if you're pretty and new, And so probably you would have gotten a lot of attention from the creepy guys and even some of the respectful guys because it's just accepted. It's just part of it. And they're like, that's happening, but there could be a reason for it. Just wait. That's what you said too. Wait, she's probably going to be your best friend, even though what she's doing right now is clearly inappropriate. It's the
Yeah,
same
I'm
thing with,
I'm telling you, I feel violated, and you're saying I
yeah,
should befriend her. I'm like, that's not
yes,
the solution here.
right. And basically, what she's telling you and what we're told is our feelings are wrong. and we'll figure that out eventually. And that's pretty much what I would tell the women when I would read this book. Yeah, you don't like it today, but just sit with it. You'll get it. You just got to wait. And then pretty soon you'll just drink the Kool-Aid and you'll take it as the word, even if you don't take it right now.
Right. And the entire thing and concept around the idea that anger is the dubious luxury of normal men and that we can't do the
Right.
grouch and the brainstorm and that we can't be angry. And if we are, we're branded as resentful or somehow part of our humanity is deemed wrong. And therefore we should, that's called spiritual bypassing and denial of your own humanity, and impossible because we all are going to be angry. Maybe even every day we're going to have a flavor of anger, just like we will of joy. We're going to have all the
Right.
feelings all the fucking time because that's what it is to be a human.
Yes.
And so the
Yes.
idea that my anger is wrong and then to spiritualize it. And so specifically like with this example, right? So I'm supposed to befriend her instead of to understand that my anger is a sign that my boundary has been crossed, and
Right.
therefore like to validate that, like, yeah, to protect yourself or don't engage, whatever, some advice or even ideas around that. Instead, it's like, no, you're supposed to lean into the boundary violators because we
Yes.
don't do anger here, and anger isn't a sign that you've been violated. Oftentimes,
Hmm.
the anger is a sign that we've been violated in some way, a boundary, whether it's emotional, physical, any sort of way, or even our ego has been
Right.
violated, which then we can look at on our own spiritual journey or whatever. But
Yes.
anger isn't wrong in and of itself, and it doesn't mean move closer.
Right. Right. I mean, it's true. AA taught me not to trust my internal uh, my internal compass. It just taught me not to trust that. In the big book, it says that if your motives are clear, like if you're out to get somebody sober, you should be able to go anywhere, even a dangerous place, because God will protect you. And that I went places and I went to help people where I was really putting myself in harm and I felt it, but I ignored it because the big book said if my intentions are clear and I'm doing it for the right reasons, God will protect me. All in the
and
spirit of saving them.
yeah, and Bill made it clear that he is sure, Bill Wilson is sure that his way of living has advantages for all, including you.
Yeah, including you. I feel like we could just talk forever on this forward to the first edition.
We would like it understood that our alcoholic work is an avocation.
Hmm.
Okay, this is where it's setting up the free labor culture. This is
Yes.
where he's saying that we need to be martyrdom is a virtue, that we need to self-sacrifice for the cause, that we need to build out his cult religion through our
Right.
free unpaid labor, that we are to be exploited, that this alcoholic work is an avocation.
Right. I had to look that word up. In fact, I would have the women that I worked with write the definition of avocation so they would be clear that it's something you did that you didn't get paid. That it wasn't your job for money. It was like your calling. It was your calling.
It's a polite way of saying free labor or extortion. Yeah. Okay. When writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to admit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. We ask the press also to observe this request, for otherwise we should be greatly handicapped. Look, I would love to hear from the comments because people are going to know a lot more than me on this. Bill went quite aggressively with the press to get this
Yeah.
book into public consciousness. The idea,
Hmm.
the disease concept, and all of his ideas as widely adapted. This is just completely counter to what he actually was doing at the time that this was published and after this was published. So I don't even know what this line means.
I think it's like reverse psychology because Bill was a manipulator. He's saying this, but he's really wanting them to inquire and he's wanting people to talk about it. And he's just like tempting people. I dare you to do it. I think it's just a little bit of a reverse psychology right there.
Oh yeah, like don't talk about it, so it makes everybody talk about it. What was that app that launched during the beginning of the pandemic? There was some audio only app. Oh my god, I don't remember what it's called. And it was like invite only, or when people do like exclusive things where you can't
Yes,
talk about it, or it's only if you have to know someone to get in, it creates like
right.
an allure, like a buzz and a desire.
Everybody wants to do it. Like every press is going to read this and they're going to be like, there's a story there. They're trying to, I got to get that story. If Bill's the kind of person that I imagine he was, through everything I know about Bill, through the stuff I've read and heard, he probably said that very specifically, hoping people would want the book and would want to inquire about it. Because you're right, Bill went all over talking to people about the big book and trying to get funding and talking about it to hospitals, to rich people, to everywhere, businessmen, banks.
100%.
We are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word. There are no fees or dues whatsoever. Yeah, that's not true. We know that there are fees and dues. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. A lot of people quote that, but they sure have a lot of other requirements that they put on you.
You're
It's
required to
all
sponsor, you're required to get a commitment at 2 different meetings where I was. You're required to go to any lengths for your sobriety. You're required to do
right.
what your sponsor says. It's not explicitly said, but if you don't fall in line, you are punished. Right. You're not part of the clique. You're not invited. You're not included. Love is withheld. Love in quotes.
What they'll say to you is keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back, because they want you to get the message and start to fall in line with the rest of the little AA soldiers. And they don't want to discourage you from coming. So they say keep coming back. And they also say it works if you work it. So if it's not working for you, you're just not working it enough. So you better come back. And so when they say the only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking, that's just a lie.
I just read a book this week called Rational Recovery from 1990, I want to say 1996, somewhere like in the early 90s. And so are you familiar with Rational Recovery at all?
I don't think so, no.
The basic core of it, from what I can gather from reading this book, is that it's essentially that there's what he calls like an alcoholic voice in your mind. And it's coming from like your primitive part of your brain. There's essentially you, and then there's the alcoholic voice, your voice and the alcoholic voice. And distinguishing between the voices is how you rationally get sober. And so like your thoughts are the thoughts that in the morning say, I never want to drink again. I'm never going to drink. That was terrible. I'm never going to drink. And then by 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and you're like, I'm going to have a drink. Fuck it. I'm going to have a drink. That's the voice of the alcohol voice. And so it's not alcoholic thinking. It's more the way he distinguishes it is any thoughts, feelings, images, or moods that are around wanting to get a drink or moving to get a drink. That's the alcoholic voice. And so you have to, it's called alcohol voice recognition technology. It's not a program. It's not a recovery method. It's literally distinguishing against voices in your head that move towards a drink and then who you actually are, and then not listening to that voice and knowing it's always going to be there and it's going to get quiet over time.
Yes.
And so in that ideology, which sounds like a whole vibe to me, and shout out, thank you to the YouTube commenter who recommended that I read that book. Loved it. And I'll do more on that. But so when he says the only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking, even the ideology around that you are powerless over deciding to stop drinking. It's a desire to stop drinking. That's loaded in there too. That it's that you have a desire to stop, not a choice, because you can't have a choice because you're going to fail. So you are going to fail. That's why it's only a desire. You are going to fail. You are never going to stop. You always need us. Relapse is part of the gig. And I'm not shaming anybody who relapses here. I'm just saying how AA sets us up to fail from the start. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're not going to stop. Instead, what rational recovery says is you keep drinking because you haven't actually really decided to stop. That makes sense to me. I never wanted to fucking quit until the day that I did. And so to getting honest with ourselves is that we have to actually really decide we are done. The same way I decided I'm done with cigarettes in 2010 and I haven't had one since, and I never went to a program. The desire to smoke came back in my head over the first 2 years. I would have a little hit here, a little there. Like really, it was I was having a feeling I didn't want to feel, and my thought was have a cigarette, and I was like, oh, there's the thought that I want to have a cigarette. So I essentially did rational recovery without knowing it on my cigarette addiction, and never smoked again because I decided to stop. And so it's about deciding that we're not going to fucking drink anymore, and then not drinking, and then when the thoughts come to drink, that we don't listen to them. That's not who
Right.
we are. And taking the power
Right.
in that moment and getting back in touch with our actual who we actually are. And so desire to stop, I'm like, no, it's a decision to stop because we don't
Right.
decide we need Bill's program. What about deciding?
Yes.
And I don't
Right.
want to make it so simple because I understand alcohol addiction is a hard problem. And I certainly had that problem. But Bill is setting it up that we can't actually decide to stop.
No. Right. That is not our decision. That we might make an honest, we have an honest desire, but we can't do it without AA. We want to stop, but we can't do it. We can't control it. We're powerless. There's no way we can
Right.
do it without AA. That's what Bill will go on to tell us.
And even in AA, we can't be decided to stop. In AA, we are still powerless and need a daily reprieve in
Yes.
order to have the
Yes.
power. God gives us the power to stop. We don't have the power of
Yes.
choice.
No.
Rational
No.
recovery says we have the power of choice, but we never decided. What do you think in general about that the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking?
I think that's how they get you hooked in the beginning. That's the hook because it's simple. And yeah, okay, I don't want to drink. I guess I can do this program. And that's how they get you hooked in and then slowly get you indoctrinated into the real program, which is there's way more requirements than a desire to stop drinking. It even says an honest desire. That means that I'm not lying to myself. Well, who stops drinking and really honestly wants to? Most people make a decision not to drink, but they'd rather drink if they could, even the honest desire part. And it's just not true. It's not the only requirement for membership. It's just not. If you get a sponsor, you're told that you need to put money in the hat because you were drinking, right? So now you're putting that money in the hat to support the mission of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't believe that the only requirement for membership to AA is the desire to stop drinking. It's way bigger than that if you stick around long enough. And the longer you're around, you'll find out there's a lot of requirements and they get bigger and bigger. You're expected to do more and more and more.
I was there a little more than a decade, and you were there a little more than 3 decades. What would you say are some of the requirements that you came to find out, you came to believe, you came to see?
Okay, the other requirements are you have to surrender your will, you have to find a higher power. And it's okay in the beginning if your higher power is the doorknob or the meeting. You can say that God is a group of drunks. It's okay to have the meeting as your higher power in the beginning, but eventually you'll see it our way and it will become a God of your understanding, but basically the same God that we're all worshiping, which is going to be a religious God. So there's that. There's that you've got to pray. There's all kinds of prayers that you've got to say. You've got to read the big book. You got to sponsor people. You have to be sponsored. You have to get a sponsor. You have to have a service commitment in your home group. And then the longer they say that too much has been given, much is required. So the longer you're sober, the more you have to be grateful for, the more work you need to do. It never ends. It just gets harder and harder the longer you stay sober because now, you've been given so much that you have to do so much and it's never you can never stop. You can never stop ever. So it's not just you don't it's not that's not the only requirement, period. That's just the hook to get you sucked into AA. And then you might have a sponsor that requires you to pay their phone bill. Or I've mentioned Clancy before. Clancy is a very beloved AA personality. He's a big personality, and I have seen him speak, but he would have his sponsees pick up dog poop in his backyard. Now, defenders of that would say, yeah, but that's because he would have a picnic or he'd invite people over, so the backyard needed to be cleaned up. But it's still free labor. He would make the people he sponsored do work. And he wasn't always very nice to them. He didn't treat them very respectfully. And that's the way a lot of especially the old men and some of the old women in AA is like, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. Like, shut the fuck up. You don't have nothing to contribute. In fact, I've had sponsors say, you can't say anything, Carrie, not for the first 6 months. Just go to meetings and just listen. But you don't have anything to contribute because this was after I relapsed. It's like you've relapsed. Obviously, you aren't doing something right. So you need to listen better. It's always about the person who is identifying as an alcoholic in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, like you've said, it's us. It's not the program's not working. We're just not working it. We're not working it hard enough. We haven't surrendered enough. We haven't made our God big enough. We're not doing enough. We're not helping enough people. I mean, it's awful when you're having a hard time, when you're really having emotion and you need help, and you call your sponsor or somebody in the program and they say, you need to get out of your head, call 10 people and ask them how they're doing. And yeah, I mean, that is a good way to get out of your head, but it's also a really good way to totally stuff your emotions and not deal with how you're feeling. I'm going to call 10 people, and yeah, she's got it way worse than I do. So pretty soon I'm not thinking about my problems, and they just get stuffed down, and my emotions get discounted, and I never deal with them. That's kind of how it is, because no matter what emotion you have in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's if you're pointing a finger at somebody, you've got all these fingers pointing back at you, you're the problem. You're the problem, Carrie.
And then you're a fake ass friend because you're calling people because you're selfish, not because you care about how they're doing.
Right.
So you're
Right.
pretending like you want to be someone's, people are getting, oh, Carrie's calling me. She was thinking about me. No, she was trying to not think about herself.
Yep.
So it sets up the whole fake friendship thing
Yep.
even more.
It does. It does.
That's a lot of requirements.
It is. It's a lot of requirements.
Oh, you're required to humiliate yourself through regular confession rituals too.
Yeah, right. And I've been shamed at the podium. I think I mentioned that when my sponsor gave me I think it was probably my 22-year chip, or maybe it was earlier than that. And that's when I had been involved with a woman at work through sexual harassment situation. She stood at the podium to give me my chip and shamed me and talked about how I was doing stuff that wasn't right and that I was lucky that I'm even sober. Everybody looked at me like, oh my God, what's Carrie up to? And I had family there, because your family goes when you get your chip. And they're even thinking, what the hell?
A degradation ceremony. It's like a humiliation ritual in
Mhm.
front of your friends and your family on your
Yep.
special day of a milestone
Yep.
achievement to knock you down a couple pegs
Right.
with a group humiliation.
I've seen
It's
it
fucked up.
happen. I've seen it happen over and over and over. And sometimes I even sat there and thought, well, that was probably well deserved. She probably needed to hear that, justify that kind of behavior.
And it's kind of like another requirement too. You're required to take the verbal or whatever, the emotional abuse. And hey, I served some of it out. So I'm not innocent in
Me
this.
too.
Told people they were powerless and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to receive the humiliation without doing anything about it, I was certainly group shamed by my sponsor.
Right.
And I never felt that I could do anything about it. There's no one to tell. So that is an underlying requirement too,
Yes.
that you're supposed to take whatever emotional jabs your sponsor or
Yes.
somebody else throws at you because of group unity. It's principles over personalities.
Well, and I was also told, Carrie, when you asked me to be your sponsor, then you gave me permission to take your inventory. So I have permission to tell you what I think about what you're doing. I have permission to call you out on your shit. And I have permission, I guess, to shame you in public. So once again, turn it all back to
Yeah.
me. It's my fault.
The weirdest thing for me about it is like I totally loved my sponsor and she helped me so much and I felt so grateful for her all the time. And even when I would
Same.
drive all the way out to her house, which was like a half an hour from mine, I would drive all the way out to her house and then she would forget and I'd sit in the car outside her house
Yep.
again and she wasn't there. And so I would be like a good little AA and I would just read the 12 and 12 in my car for the hour that we were set to meet and then drive back home and then never give her shit about the
No.
fact that she couldn't remember to show up for me. But I've
Right.
gone all the way out of my way. Now this is over 2 hours of my life and you weren't even fucking
Right.
home. Like what the
Right.
hell? You can't even text me and say I can't make it.
No.
And I just thought I had to be grateful the entire time and
Yes.
never even look at that as like that's not cool. And but nowhere else in my life would that not be I mean, could you imagine showing up and like
No.
you're just going to hang out in your car cuz your friend doesn't arrive? Like what
Right.
the fuck is that?
Oh, and it works the other side way too, because like God forbid, as a single mom, I have an emergency come up and I have a commitment with my sponsor and I can't make it, because then I'd have to hear about how she designated that time for me and she took time out of her life and planned her whole night around meeting with me and now is canceling, and that was rude and inconsiderate and not very sober. And I'm like, Shit happens, but it can't happen. It can't happen because it's just one more excuse to shame you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've done the same
Yeah.
thing to the women I sponsor. Hey, you said you'd meet me and you're not here, and obviously you don't care about getting sober and you don't care about my time. And okay, so here's the
Totally.
deal. I did need to learn how to keep commitments better because I
Yeah.
was young and I was drinking and partying and like some, I would say shit I didn't mean. I would tell you I'd meet up with you and I had no intention of doing it. There was a lot of growing up that I had to do. I probably would have done in or out of AA. I just needed to grow up.
Yeah. I had this one sponsee, I think I was like 2 years sober or something. And so maybe like 2011 or 2012 maybe. And I'd only worked with her for like a month or two. Like, so I don't, when I think about my sponsees, I usually think about the ones I worked with for over a year. There was like a few core women that I worked with for like many, many years. And so this one sponsee, we would go to the cafe that was across the street from the clubhouse and I would be there. And the first time I was there, she was like, I don't know, like 30 minutes late or something. And then I still gave her an hour of my time. And then I went home resentful, talked to my sponsor
Yes.
about it. And my sponsor helped me work on boundaries that it was like, I'm only going to be there that 1 hour. And then I texted her and I let her know too, I'm only available to meet, let's say 9 to 10 a.m. And if you're more than 15 minutes late, I'm going to leave. And then if that happens, then I'm only willing to meet you at my house. And if you still continue to be late, then we won't work together at all. So my
Yes.
sponsor helped me put up boundaries. And it was really like my sponsor called it living amends to myself around respecting my own time. That I can't just let people walk all over me
Right.
and that I'm teaching people how to treat me. And so what happened was I told her the boundary. If we meet this hour, we end exactly on time. And if you are more than 15 minutes late, I leave. So it's 9:15. She's not there. So I pack up my stuff. It's 9:16 and I'm like, fuck it. And I'm starting to walk out the door and she's walking in the door at 9:17 as I'm walking out. And she's like, oh my God, the parking was terrible. I couldn't park. I look, even though no excuses, honey, we made a deal, right? Then you have to come 15 minutes early or something.
Right.
And so then I looked around and like there's all these parking spaces. And I was like, okay, first of all, that's a lie. Second of all, it doesn't. And I remember feeling like such a jerk. And I was like, we had a deal. And she's like, can we meet again like tomorrow or the next day? I'm like, no, we'll meet in 1 week from now. That's the deal. This is our time. And
Right.
so she might have the perspective that I was whatever she would think, but I was also learning about my own boundaries.
Yes.
It was people not showing up for me,
Right.
whether it was my own sponsor not showing up for me or my own sponsee.
Right.
I've always had this over responsibility, like
Yes.
trauma response, right? So I was always there, but people weren't there for me. And I needed to learn how, or I got to learn how to respect myself. But I can see how that might be uncomfortable for her, but she was violating our own agreement. I don't know. There's so much in
I
these
know.
relationships, especially in early sobriety, and we're all trying to
Same.
figure out how to human without alcohol.
Yes, yes. And I can see both sides of that. I do believe when I sponsored women that like, hey, you said you'd be here, you have to figure that out. That's part of being an adult. It's not even part of being an alcoholic or being having substance use disorder. It's being an adult. You have to do what you say you're going to do, and you have to be considerate of other people's time. Those are invaluable lessons. There's no doubt that I grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous and learned how to be an adult, but I also grew up. But people did. They didn't take my crap. They told me you can't say you're going to do something and not do it. So I learned that lesson. And I did, like you, I learned to stand up for myself and not be a doormat. I learned to say what I really meant. I'm grateful that I learned to tell the truth because I was a big ass liar. I lied about everything. I
Mm,
lied when it would be just as easy to tell the truth because telling the truth wasn't safe. I didn't feel like telling the truth was, I thought I might get harmed. So I just told you what I thought you wanted to hear. There's so many things that I learned, and it was actually shown to me by other women in Alcoholics Anonymous who told me these things. But it was still under the whole umbrella of you have to believe what we believe.
yeah. And that's why I feel like even though there were things that I learned and things that I'm truly grateful for and relationships that I had, because I had one of my friends was like, yeah, but like we wouldn't be friends if we both didn't go through AA and pop out. I don't regret it all. And I'm like, yeah, but What about the friends that I didn't get to make because I was in a cult for a decade? I miss them. If I'm going to say that I get you and that's why I'm grateful for it, no, I would have had other friends that I would have also not wanted to not ever meet because I was in a cult, that I didn't actually meet because I was in a cult. So I would have had friends either way or whatever. So I can't play that game.
No. I totally hear you, because all my friends were in AA. I mean, and actually until I met my wife, who had friends that weren't in AA, all my relationships were in AA. I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise it, because then you've got two people in sobriety, and then you've got the sponsors, and the sponsors talk, and they talk about you, and it just can be just a big mess. Yeah. If you have a
Yeah,
choice, don't date in AA. That's what I would say.
totally. If you have a choice, don't go to AA. That's what I
Don't
would
go.
say.
Yeah.
It's
Same.
kind of like if there's a public pool, like at a resort or something, and the little kid goes poop and they have to evacuate the pool. They have to drain it, clean it, treat it, whatever they do. And there's like a 24-hour, you cannot go in the pool because a little kid went number 2. So if you're in a swimming pool and you're like, part of the water is good, there's benefit in it, like swimming is healthy for you or whatever. It's like, yeah, but there's crap in the pool. Like it's
Right.
actually poisonous and toxic, and it's going to absorb into you. It's going to E. coli, whatever reasons. Or if somebody hands you a green smoothie with a drop of cyanide or some kind of
Right.
poison or something, but there's so much nutrients in the spinach and in the kale and whatever. It's like,
Right.
yo, it's poison. You
Yes.
can't separate the nutrients from the poison. And that's why I think AA, no, don't go, because you
No.
can't separate all the things that I got that were good. You can't separate that from the
No.
poison that was
No.
all throughout it. And I could have got those good things, learning boundaries, learning how to stand up
Yes.
for self, learning how to respect my time through other ways that were not poisonous. I didn't
Right.
have to have the green smoothie with poo in it or with
Yeah.
like poison in it. You can actually get those nutritious things in life somewhere that's not
Yes.
toxic. So for me, it's a hard no. Although I don't know what anybody else should do, but for me, it's a hard no.
Well, I think your point, you just made the point, I think, of the day, which is you can get, and that I think that's what I was trying to say too. I can get all that stuff. I could have learned to be on time somewhere else. I could have learned to be and matured other places. It didn't have to be in a program that told me that I couldn't trust my thinking. It didn't have to be in a
Mm.
program that said, your mind is dangerous and that you're forever diseased. It didn't have to be in that program. And I think, Kirsten, that's where deconstructing AA, that is the core of it. The core of it
Mm.
is allowing yourself to believe that yes, maybe stuff was good and I got a lot of benefit, but I could have gotten it somewhere else without the harm. Separating the good from the harm and saying to myself, and maybe I'm just talking to myself right now, which is simply, yeah, they helped you, but they also hurt you. And you could have done something else. But like I said earlier, where are you going to go when you're so desperate and you're trying to quit drinking and you've got so many problems where anybody's going to listen to you and answer the phone for you? Because by that time, a lot of times by the time we get to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, we've burned all our bridges. People are tired of us. They don't want us around.
But
Family.
AA is not the only rodeo in town. There are non-harmful recovery programs where you can get sober people's phone numbers and be in science-backed, like Smart Recovery.
Mhm.
And so I think the problem really is the AA propaganda that has, since the 1930s and mainly the 1940s, gotten into American and global consciousness that
Yes.
AA is the way, so that I didn't even know about rational recovery really until this past week reading that book. But it was around in the 90s. It was around before I ever had my first drink, but I didn't know about it. I only knew about AA the night
Yep.
I got out of rehab. I didn't know about SMART. I didn't know about all the other methods that were not poisonous. So the problem is not only is alcohol, in my mind, the problem is not only is Alcoholics Anonymous poisoned, it has poisoned the minds of America, that it is the only way. And
Yes.
overcrowded all the other ways that are not poisonous. So we're promoting a poisonous path. and disregarding all the
Yep.
non-poisonous paths, because the AA indoctrination happened at the national level and at the global level, not just in the rooms, but outside of the rooms, because of all the propaganda, all the people saying AA is the way, whether it's in Hollywood,
Yep.
media, individual celebrities coming out, and these days like podcasts or whatever. It's because AA has been branded as the way, and
Yep.
AA's methodology branded as the way, that we don't know that we can drink a green juice without poison in it, that we can get non-harmful recovery.
That's a crime. That's just criminal. It's criminal that we don't know that there's other ways. My mom had a hip replacement. Her doctor wasn't aware or didn't do the procedure that goes from the front. No, he only does the procedure from the side. And he didn't even want to tell her about other doctors that would do the easier procedure for her health. We need to be told that there's other ways. Just because Dr. Johnson doesn't do a hip replacement from the front doesn't mean that he should even still be practicing, because this other method that my mom had is like 100 times easier to recover from. The old way of replacing your hip requires lots of physical therapy and lots of adaptive equipment and pain. We need to get the word out. How do you get the word out to the community? That there are other ways other than AA. Don't send people to AA just because that's what we've always done. Don't do it. It's not the best, and it could be very, very harmful. In fact, it is.
I really think that the way that doctors or medical professionals currently in 2025, which is like mind blowing, recommend AA is going to be as cringe as when we look back a couple decades ago as doctors recommending to smoke Camels as their
Yes.
preferred method of cigarettes.
Right.
Doctors recommending AA, to me, it's as cringe now as if a doctor is telling you what kind of cigarettes to smoke. It's
Same.
just as like, but society hasn't caught up yet because of the indoctrination. People don't know. I didn't know until recently, when I'm really looking into this like hardcore and reading all these books and educating myself. We're not educated, we're illiterate as a society, and then we think a poisonous, harmful way is the right path
Right.
without even knowing that it's poisonous and harmful. And then on top of that, because it is cult, it has that like that anger, that defense mechanism where if you speak against it, there's like attack against you. Even if people aren't in AA, they would
Yes.
frown upon someone talking bad about AA because they're also indoctrinated, not as
Yes.
deep. They won't be as angry, but in general,
Right.
people are against hearing anything that points out the harms in AA.
Right. And I think it's because they want to offload their loved ones who are
Right,
suffering. They don't want to deal with it, and so it's easier just to send them
right,
to AA. We want to believe that AA is a magic band-aid that's going to fix everything, and that's what we've been sold
right.
that. I mean, that's what the world has been sold, this bill of goods, that AA is the way, and they don't
Yeah.
want to have to, they don't care enough to look at it. Substance use disorder and mental health treatment always falls at the bottom of the list of medical conditions that need to be treated or helped or anything. The money doesn't go there, not in hospitals, not anywhere. So it doesn't surprise me. It's just easier to say go to AA. We don't care if it's a cult. Being in a cult's still better than what you were doing. Go to a
So you
cult.
worked in substance abuse before. What was the overall mentality about substance abuse where you worked? What was the ideology you guys were operating through? Or how were you thinking about it as a company or as a business?
Well, it was a multidisciplinary treatment program. So if you were into AA, then that's what you preached. But there were all kinds of help. There was CBT, we did send our patients to AA meetings and require that they go to AA or NA. But, and then if you were like me and you'd been in AA, then that's what you preached. But we gave them other options. Like we didn't just say, it wasn't an AA based treatment center based on the
Okay.
12 steps. Thank God. I mean, it was really, there was scientifically based treatment modalities that occurred there. Thank God. EMDR, CBT, all the stuff. And I really thought all that, honestly, was probably not as helpful as me talking about AA. That's how egotistical I was because I had the true
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. Well, we believe it. When we believe it, I really believed it too.
Yeah,
And it was offensive to think that anything that was like against that was like offensive.
totally. Totally. I feel like we just have like one paragraph to go here. We are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination, nor do we oppose any. We simply wish to be helpful to those who are afflicted. There again, using the words that set you up to be sick. We shall be interested to hear from those who are getting results from this book, particularly from those who have commenced work with other alcoholics. We should like to be helpful to such cases. Inquiry by scientific, medical, and religious societies will be welcomed. But we're going to remain anonymous because we really don't want you to find us. So it's kind of like saying, speaking out of both sides of your ass there, Bill.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, we just got through the forward to the first edition.
What came up for you as you were listening to this? Did your sponsor or somebody in AA tell you to start at the very beginning, like it was told for us? What was your experience going through this? What did we miss? What popped out to you? What thoughts came up? What was triggered in you? Let us know in the comments. Let this be a conversation. Again, I certainly don't know best here. This is about critical thinking. So I'm interested in what critical thinking you were having, or any revelations or little pockets of freedom that opened up as you heard this conversation. We obviously went on a couple of tangents here. Hopefully those were helpful for you and unlocked something in you. I certainly enjoyed my time. I hope it was worth your time as well. Thank you so much, Carrie, for coming on and doing a big book breakdown and breaking us through to more liberation from this outdated cult religion text, holy text channeled from God, not channeled from God. I really appreciated having you here, Carrie, and thank you so much for sharing your experience, strength, and hope with the bullshit in the book.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.